where news comes first. This is ABC 7 Extra.
Welcome to ABC 7 Extra. Good evening, I'm Stephanie Valle. For the next half hour, we are talking about solar power. Specifically, how do residents in El Paso and New Mexico use solar energy to power their homes? How does self-generated solar power affect their electric bills? And how much of a rebate can they expect from the electric company? And can you really be self-powered in El Paso and New Mexico? Joining me to discuss solar power for residents in El Paso, New Mexico is Jim Schiessel, the Vice President of Regulation and Governmental Affairs for El Paso Electric, and Sam Salerio, the owner of Sunshine City Solar, a rooftop solar energy company based here in El Paso. For transparency purposes, both Sunshine City Solar and El Paso Electric are advertisers here on ABC 7. And I want to thank both of you for being here today.
Thank you. Thank you.
So I would like to start with you, Mr. Schiessel. El Paso Electric has a record of how many people in El Paso and New Mexico are applying to use solar energy. So how many people submitted applications, and why does El Paso Electric track this number?
We get about 500 or so applications a month distributed across Texas and New Mexico. We currently have around 30,000 residential customers with rooftop solar, and we annually see about 5,000 a year applications processed and new systems go on homes.
So talk about just how this compares to the total number of people in El Paso and New Mexico who are using electricity in general. Would you say that this number is pretty large, pretty small? Is it growing?
It's a growing number. It's generally speaking, between 5 and 10% is considered to be pretty good penetration for utilities. You see more than that in California, for example, in Arizona. Texas has been very rapid in the last several years, and we're closing in on, so we have about 400,000 residential customers across the two states, so we're closing in on 10% of residential customers with rooftop solar.
Okay, so Mr. Salerio, tell me about your company, Sunshine City Solar. When did you begin operations, and why did you want to get into solar power?
So I started Sunshine City in 2019, and I got into the industry about a year before that and saw a lot of issues with solar power in El Paso, and I saw the opportunity of helping solar power make sense in the Sun City. It needs to make sense here. This is the perfect place for solar energy, and there's a lot of things that are stopping solar energy, and specifically rooftop solar, from making as much sense as it should, and in our opinion, the biggest thing is El Paso Electric.
You mentioned, first of all, you said there were some issues. What do you mean by issues?
So if you look at utilities in New Mexico and across Texas, like every Texas city with over 500,000 people, those cities either have options as to which utility they're going to choose, or they have better incentives for their rooftop solar. Utilities in Austin and San Antonio are paying individuals who install solar power on their properties $2,500 for installing it correctly. They also buy back that energy that solar customers overproduce at much higher rates than El Paso Electric does. So El Paso Electric pays at most 3 cents per unit for solar customers' overproduction. You know, your rooftop solar panels are going to overproduce on many months. They're going to use more. They're going to create more energy for these homeowners, these business owners with properties, with solar panels on their property that they're going to use in those months. And all the extra goes back to El Paso Electric. They pay you for it, but they don't pay you very much for it. Other utilities are paying much more and making it a better investment for people. It's really a disincentive what El Paso Electric is doing here with rooftop solar.
Okay, so Mr. Schiessel, if you could respond to that, how does El Paso Electric pay solar company or solar panel users for the power that they generate if they generate too much and it ends up going back to the electric company? And can you refute what is being said, or how does it work?
Well, I think I would refine it a little. Texas, or El Paso, is unique in Texas in that what we offer for, and this is the case for New Mexico also, all the utilities in New Mexico, but we offer what's called net energy metering. And actually we're required to offer net energy metering in Texas by statute. And what net energy metering does is that, as Sam said, when a rooftop solar customer produces more than they use, it goes back onto the grid and it's consumed by other customers. But later, at other times when the when the rooftop solar customer is using more, let's say at night, when their solar system is not operating, they actually get that electricity, effectively they get it back because it's credited against their consumption at night. And so in effect, they're getting paid the retail rate, which means that what they're receiving as compensation under NEM is about 10 to 12 cents. And the component of excess production that Sam is talking about is really whatever's left over at the end of the month, the billing month, if that customer has not consumed in the netting process what they had exported, that additional amount is 3 cents or so payment for that energy. But for the bulk of what the average DG or rooftop solar customer produces and exports to the grid, for the bulk of it, they get closer to 10 to 12 cents. But they get it as a credit against other consumption.
Okay, and so also Mr. Solorio had mentioned that people in Austin and other cities in the state of Texas are getting $2,500 back. I mean, we're talking about pretty large numbers. Can you talk about, is that a comparable number here in El Paso? Do we see something like that here in El Paso and New Mexico?
Well, I'm not as familiar with the rebates that utilities offer, say, for example, the municipal utilities in San Antonio and Austin. They do have net metering, so they do compensation in much the same way. But in both those cases, Austin and New Mexico and San Antonio, they're actually pulling back on those. They're starting to pull back on those because as more and more customers use start getting rooftop solar, the numbers get larger in terms of the cost of those programs. And of course, somebody has to pay for those rebates. And they either come from for a municipal utility, they either come from the rates that are charged to other customers, or they come from tax revenue for the city. So EPE does not offer rebates to customers for installations. The program NEM really, I think, is the vehicle for making them financially viable. The 3 cents, for example, Sam talked about, and what I mentioned in terms of payment for excess production is pretty comparable to what the cost that EPE actually can acquire solar energy at. So it's really a comparable price. It's actually a little high compared to large-scale solar installations.
And so, Mr. Solorio, how has demand been for your business, and would you feel like it would be representative of the overall growth of solar power usage in the area? We heard that it's about 10% of the overall electricity customers in our area.
So from our calculation from El Paso Electric's most recent sustainability report, it was about 6%, less than 7% of El Paso Electric customers currently have their own rooftop solar panels. And it's a big disincentive. You know, the $30 a month, so these solar panels are offsetting all of the electricity that a lot of customers are using on a monthly basis. And El Paso Electric pays you back 3 cents per kilowatt hour for overproduction. At the end of the month, whatever overproduction you've got, they'll pay you back 3 cents for it. But the minimum bill that El Paso Electric charges these solar customers is $30 per month. So that 3 cents, it's going to take a lot of overproduction to ever get down into the negatives. So in New Mexico, El Paso Electric treats their customers a lot different. It looks like El Paso Electric is just abiding by the minimum requirements in both New Mexico and Texas. New Mexico did not allow El Paso Electric to have a minimum bill. In 2015, the Utility Commission shot it down. They said, no, that's a disincentive for people to go solar. They're trying to push renewable energy. And so New Mexico said no. And as for the fairness argument, El Paso Electric and many utilities say that the rooftop solar customers, they're distributing the costs of maintaining the grid to the other customers that don't have solar, that can't afford it, or whatever else. That's a cost-shifting argument, but it's flawed in 2 ways. And the first is that in 2020, El Paso Electric was acquired by JP Morgan Chase's Infrastructure Investment Fund. In the 5 years before that acquisition, El Paso Electric averaged $96 million in net profit. In the 2 full years since that acquisition, El Paso Electric has averaged $130 million in net profit. So it's not about cost shifting, it's about control shifting, because if consumers can produce their own electricity, El Paso Electric is losing that monopoly grip that they have on us. And yeah, it's keeping a lot of people from going solar, because if your average bill is $60 a month and we can only reduce it to $30 a month, that keeps a lot of people from even looking at solar, and that's unfortunate for the Sun City.
Okay, well, and before I have you respond, Mr. Schiestel, I mean, you're not installing these solar panels for free, so what is the cost of installing solar panels, and wouldn't that be a deterrent?
Yes, so there's no such thing as free solar. There's a lot of advertisements online saying free solar panels, just click here. That's not a thing. And so yes, solar panels is a big investment, whether it's cash up front or a large loan. But if you think of big screen TVs 20 years ago, they were bigger, they were not as nice, and they cost thousands of dollars. Now you can get a 60-inch TV for less than $500, and it's the same thing with solar. Solar's been around since the 1970s, and the price has plummeted decade after decade. As more and more solar panels are manufactured across the world, the price is going to keep going down, and utility prices are going to keep going up. So as El Paso Electric tries to punish solar more, as the price of rooftop solar keeps dropping, the result is inevitable. Right now, less than 7% of El Paso Electric customers are producing their own energy, but El Paso Electric doesn't want to imagine a future where 50% of its ratepayers can produce their own electricity.
Okay, so Mr. Schiestel, clearly there were a lot of things said there, so if you'd like to take this opportunity to respond.
Sure. I mean, I think I want to talk about just really briefly the minimum bill and what that represents. And it really is a fairness and equity argument here between customers who can afford rooftop solar and who actually can do it physically because they have a home that has a roof that can actually accommodate rooftop solar. So for example, there are generally speaking numbers on the order of 25 to 20%. Only 25 to 25% of residential customers can actually do rooftop solar because they're either a renter or in apartments, and so they don't have a roof, or they don't have a roof that actually works for rooftop solar. So there's that natural limit against how much rooftop solar you can see. And then there's also the cost, and there's that limitation exists as well. And Sam's absolutely right that the cost of solar production has gone down. The cost of utility scale solar has gone down even more. And the fact is that rooftop solar, at least from the perspective of producing renewable energy, is the least efficient and most expensive way to do it. And whereas the utility scales is the opposite. It's the most efficient and the least expensive. But the design of the minimum bill and the purpose of the minimum bill is really just to recover the cost of the grid to which these customers are interconnected, same grid that customers without rooftop are connected to. And it's interesting because a rooftop solar customer really relies on the grid all the time, in the same way a non-rooftop customer does. That is, they're either taking electricity off of it or they're putting electricity on it. And in fact, most rooftop systems, if not all small rooftop systems, can't operate without a grid, an energized grid. And so the distribution grid is critical to even the capability to have rooftop solar. And all the minimum bill does is say, what's the average cost of that, the fixed cost of the grid? Because when a customer goes to rooftop solar, and let's take Sam's example of a customer who produces enough to completely offset their consumption for the month in that netting that I talked about, they essentially would see, without the minimum bill, they would essentially just see a customer charge, which is designed to recover the cost of metering and billing. And they wouldn't pay anything towards the cost of this fixed grid. That's the pole and transformer and wires all over or underground serving residential areas. And so the purpose of the minimum bill is just to recover those costs. And being able to completely eliminate any of that recovery through the net energy metering process really just pushes those costs off onto non-rooftop solar customers. And so it is, in fact, an equity issue. It's a fairness issue across all, and for the most part, rooftop solar is all residential customers. So it's really a fairness issue across residential customers.
Okay, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll continue our discussion on solar power in our area. We'll be right back. This is ABC 7 Extra.
If a grilled cheese and a double cheeseburger got married, their combined assets would include 2 seasoned beef patties and 3 pieces of melty American cheese. At their wedding, we'd give them a Texas toast. Sonic $3.99 grilled cheese double burger and tot steel.
For over 47 years, the attorneys at Scher Legate have been fighting and winning for our clients. For serious injury and wrongful death cases, the attorney you choose matters. Experience matters. Resources matter. And above all, results matter. The experienced attorneys at Share Legate believe every client's case should be taken seriously. No gimmicks, just results.
Centrally located on the Texas Tech University Health Sciences Center, El Paso campus, the Texas Tech Dental Oral Health Clinic serves our Borderplex as the region's community-centric dental clinic. Patients of all ages are provided with affordable care using cutting-edge technology in state-of-the-art facilities. Smiles are made here. Call 915-215-6700 to make your appointment today.
He's a hero. He's a first love. He's a provider and protector. He's a man of few words, but with wise answers. We love you. We miss you.
Thanks, Dad. I love you.
Happy Father's Day from the Viva Auto Group.
Remember that night you spent in an igloo, sipping on a strawberry shortcake slush float with crunchy sugar crystals? Was that real? Or is that just your brain's summer vacation house? $2.99 strawberry shortcake snowball slush float. Sonic.
Welcome back to ABC 7 Extra. I'm Stephanie Valle. We are shining the light on solar power and how residents can use solar to power their own homes. And we'll get back to our guests in a moment. But first, on a larger scale, the White House and the U.S. Treasury are offering financial incentives to encourage more use of clean energy. Just last week, the Biden administration officials said tax-exempt organizations and groups like local governments and nonprofits can enroll in something called direct pay and transferability. Now, that means they can become eligible for tax credits directly paid into their accounts from the IRS. It's meant to make it easier to subsidize clean energy projects and significantly expand their usage throughout the country. The White House senior advisor called it a game changer to help spread clean energy to communities everywhere. But House Republicans are criticizing the tax credits because the cost has grown to more than twice the original estimates. Now, joining me to discuss solar power for residents in El Paso, New Mexico, is Jim Schiestel, the Vice President of Regulation and Governmental Affairs for El Paso Electric, and Sam Solario, the owner of Sunshine City Solar, a rooftop solar energy company based here in El Paso. And for transparency, both are advertisers here on ABC 7. So thank you both again for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Schiestel, El Paso Electric is currently offering the Texas Community Solar Program. Can you tell us how long that program has been in existence and how it works?
Sure. El Paso's Texas Community Solar Program was actually approved by the Commission back in 2016. I believe it started operating around 2017. Since then, it's been fully subscribed and has expanded in that time. It originally was a 3 megawatt system with about 2,000 or so, 1,500 or 2,000 participants. It's expanded up to 5 megawatts, and we recently filed to expand it even further at the Commission by another 10 megawatts. So we're basically tripling the size of the program. As I mentioned, it's very popular. We've had a waiting list pretty much since the day we opened. And effectively what it does is allows customers, I'm a participant myself, to subscribe to a certain amount of capacity to that of those solar systems, and then you receive the energy the energy associated with your subscription. So I subscribe to 3 kW and I receive the energy on my bill every month associated with that 3 kW. You're billed a subscription price, which has gone steadily down over time, and then you receive a credit against your billed usage for that energy that's coming from the renewable system. I think it's a popular program. We proposed it as an alternative for customers who either can't afford rooftop solar, don't want to do rooftop solar, or as I mentioned, live in an apartment and don't have access in that way. It allows you to have a larger percentage of the energy supplied to you come from a renewable or a green resource. That's my motivation. I get about 50% of my energy from my clean resource that I participate in, but I didn't have the expense of a rooftop system. So it's an alternative, and we presented it as an alternative for customers who primarily want to access more renewable energy as a resource for their home.
So you said there's a waiting list. So how does it work that they are finally able to participate in the program?
So yes, there's been a waiting list on that 3 megawatt and then the 5 megawatt program for a while. There is turnover within the program, so customers do leave, and there's no long-term commitment required, so customers can leave anytime they want, and then that opens up capacity for customers on the waiting list to then participate. The motivation for, as I said, tripling the size of the program is really that long-term waiting list and customer interest. In addition, the cost of participating in the program is going down as the cost of these renewable resources go down. And the cost of a 10 megawatt system, utility size or ground-mounted solar like we do is generally single axis tracking, which means the panels actually track the sun as it moves across the sky. So they're very efficient and good output. And so not only has the efficiency increased over time, but the price has gone down. So I think that when that new system is in place next year, I would expect it to be fully subscribed once we open it up.
Wow, okay. So there are some smaller solar facilities across El Paso, including at UTEP and at the El Paso Zoo. So can you explain how those work to benefit El Paso Electric customers here in El Paso?
So there are quite a few small facilities distributed all over El Paso, and a lot of those, the early ones, the one at the zoo, for example, or others, even the one that's on top of our building in downtown El Paso, are probably more demonstration projects back than when they were done than they were really about the cost associated with them, and they're really about demonstrating what's achievable with respect to solar. But they are small, and we have pivoted, the company has, into really, when you talk about or ask the question about how does this benefit our customers generally, is really moving to these large facilities. We just recently, it's actually coming online now, completed a very large facility out north of Chaparral in New Mexico, 120 megawatt system, and which is extremely large, and will provide a significant amount of power to El Paso and Las Cruces. It also is integrated with a battery storage system, which makes the output of these facilities even more efficient and economical for ratepayers, because it can shift the output of the facilities to a time when that energy is needed more, like during the peak period in the summer.
And so there's also a solar facility that El Paso Electric purchases electricity from, and we have some video of it. We'd like you to explain how this facility works.
Well, this is the one I was just talking about. This is Buena Vista.
Okay, I thought so.
out north of Chaparral. Okay. And you see those rows of solar panels. They actually rotate as the sun moves across the sky, they are also what's referred to as this. I believe this facility uses bifacial panels, which means, believe it or not, they actually absorb sunlight from both sides. This is a smaller facility, but the large facilities are tracking facilities like this one, and you see you may see some battery storage facilities there as well. And so the power from this facility will just go directly into our system, consumed by our customers. The cost of it is paid through what's called a PPA, or a purchase power agreement, between the company and NextEra, who owns that particular facility, the Buena Vista facility, and then the cost of that will then appear on customers' bill in their fuel charge.
Okay, so what is the utility's overall goal when it comes to using renewable resources like solar and even wind for energy in our region?
Our primary goal is, as we've stated publicly in our sustainability goals, is to get to 80% clean energy by 2035, and then even work towards 100% clean energy in 2045. And that is actually consistent with the requirements in New Mexico. It's actually a little accelerated, But so that's our goal, is to gradually increase the use of the renewable and clean resources over time. About 40% of the energy that El Paso supplies to its customers comes from Palo Verde Nuclear Generating Station, which is non-carbon producing and clean. And so we're augmenting that with these expanding the use of these large solar facilities with that goal to get to 80% and even 100% clean energy over the next decade or so.
Okay, so we're going to hear from both of you after the break. We have to take a quick break, and we'll be right back to continue shining the light on solar power. You're watching ABC 7 Extra.
Join the electric revolution with the 2023 Hyundai Ioniq 6 at Oscar Leaser's Hyundai of El Paso. Say goodbye to gas stations and hello to hassle-free fast charging. With an over 360-mile range, the Ioniq 6 outperforms the competition, all while delivering exhilarating power up to 320 horsepower. Tons of tech, including two 12-inch displays and driver assist technologies like collision avoidance, parking assist, and more. Find out why the Ioniq 6 is the World Car of the Year at Oscar Leaser's Hyundai of El Paso.
Socorro Independent School District has more than 48,000 students in 50 campuses. But we're not just a number. Here, we're cared for. We belong. Team SISD gives us unforgettable traditions, experiences, and the opportunities we need to have a bright future. For over 60 years, Socorro ISD has set its sights on our future with vision, innovation, and planning to prepare us for the real world. These are our opportunities, and we will seize them.
Hamilton in El Paso at the Plaza Theater. Get tickets at elpasolive.com/Hamilton. Click, boom.
Welcome back to ABC 7 Extra. I'm Stephanie Valle. We've been discussing solar power in El Paso. Joining me, Jim Sheestol, the Vice President of Regulation and Governmental Affairs for El Paso Electric, and Sam Solario, the owner of Sunshine City Solar, a rooftop solar energy company based here in El Paso. Both advertisers here on ABC 7 for transparency purposes. Mr. Solario, I want to hear from you about what you think of the future of rooftop solar here in El Paso and New Mexico, and how do you think individual rooftop solar customers fit into that equation?
So if I may briefly touch on the community solar topic we were just talking about, there's a difference between the community solar panels that are owned by El Paso Electric, or that's an El Paso Electric asset, versus rooftop solar panels that are owned by the individuals that install them. And that difference is that the economic benefit of installing solar goes to the owner of the panels. The tax credits go to the owner of the panels. And El Paso Electric is just selling you energy from a different source. It's nice. I am excited about those large solar farms. I would like a tour of them, but they are another utility asset. And at the end of the day, it's El Paso Electric tells you what that energy costs, and the savings that rooftop solar customers see is not what community solar customers are seeing. It's not a big break on the bill. As far as the future of rooftop solar in El Paso, it's an exciting place to be. I think right now El Paso Electric is in the way of mass adoption of rooftop solar, and there's a value of solar. For every rooftop solar system, for every rooftop with solar panels on it, that's a mini power plant for our utility to rely on in peak times. Solar panels produce the most on those hot summer days when the sun is shining, and that's also when it's most expensive and when it's the most demand on our utilities infrastructure. They have to fire their peak power plants in July and August to meet with the demand. And so there's a true value of solar that El Paso Electric is not acknowledging. In those 3 cents per kilowatt hour that they're buying back your extra power from if you're a rooftop solar customer, that's not fair. El Paso Electric, with the rooftop solar customers, we should either be able to sell our own energy at fair market value back to the utility or to other people. But if El Paso Electric insists on this monopoly arrangement where they're the sole provider of electricity to our city, then they should buy back the extra power at a fair market value like other utilities do. Again and again, utilities, El Paso Electric, they rely on this fairness argument that it's not fair for non-solar customers to pay more once all the solar customers have left. But the cost of solar is going to go down, the adoption rate is going to go up. Right now we're still in the early adoption phase. And so that adoption rate is going to go up, and they can't say that it's not, that they can't bring up the fairness argument when they're posting record profits and their out-of-town owners are withdrawing cash dividends in large scale while they're trying to divide solar versus non-solar customers here locally. That's not fair, and El Paso deserves better. Either lower the minimum bill to on par with other utilities, pay more for the extra production from rooftop solar customers, or treat us like New Mexico. Pretend we're in Las Cruces and get rid of the minimum bill. And yeah, that's the best way to make it fair, actually, for El Paso. We deserve better than that in the Sun City.
Okay, so Mr. Schiestel, your response to that?
I'll just go back to talk about this fairness issue again. It isn't a matter of being fair between customers opting for rooftop solar and the utility. It's across customers that are being served by El Paso Electric, and that includes rooftop solar customers. I mean, rooftop solar customers depend on El Paso Electric, as I said, not only to make the whole thing possible, but to provide energy at night, for example, when their systems don't operate. And so the minimum bill is not about EPE recovering a certain amount of money from rooftop solar customers, or for that matter, trying to prevent it from being successful. Since the minimum bill was implemented in 2017 or so, the adoption rate or the increase in rooftop solar has actually gone up. It hasn't slowed it down from the rates that were in effect before or that were happening before the minimum bill went into effect. So I don't disagree that we need to move beyond net energy metering. I think net energy metering as a program was developed and implemented all over the country, in California and Arizona and Florida and New York, states everywhere, to make rooftop solar viable when it was very expensive. And basically it provided that credit to make that possible. It was still expensive, but customers could afford it, and NEM made it actually viable. Since then, solar rates have gone down, and the adoption rate has gone up. In states like California, Arizona, they're actually doing away with NEM for exactly that reason, is that it has become more and more expensive for other customers to continue to have this program when solar adoption continues to increase, rooftop solar adoption continues to increase. So I would love to see, and I think we will see in the future as we go forward, NEM being replaced by a different valuation methodology that pays the solar rooftop customer exactly what they're producing and exporting to the system is worth. And when we do that, I think we're going to see, for example, a higher adoption of home storage or battery storage within homes, because then it becomes much more financially viable to, say, put a battery and a solar facility on your house, and then shift the output of either shift it so that you can use it at the most opportune times, or shift it so you can export it to the utility at the most opportune or the best time. The fact is that solar doesn't really produce its maximum when EPE as a whole needs power. That's later in the day, 5 or 6 o'clock in the evening. Last year we peaked between 5 and 6 o'clock at night, and it's because people are coming home and turning on air conditioners. It's still hot. But solar at that time is actually, rooftop solar and other solar has started to decline in terms of what it's producing. So I think that if we do move to a valuation method that reflects the actual value of what's coming from rooftop solar customers, it may very well be that they do better than the 3 cents on excess production, or even do comparable to what they get today, the 10 or 12 cents that they get for under NEM. But that's really the transition we have to get to. And I agree that those customers with rooftop solar become then much more a part of the whole economic framework in the city than they are today. And I don't think we have to, and I don't think we are competing between, say, rooftop solar and the company, but paying more than it's worth, the company paying more than it's worth to a rooftop solar customer necessarily means that someone else is paying more.
All right, well, we are out of time, unfortunately, but Mr. Schiestel, Mr. Solario, thank you both for joining us in this discussion on solar power. And thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Stephanie Valle. This has been ABC 7 Extra.
Thank you for watching. ABC 7 News is now available on any of these streaming services, as well as the KVIA News and KVIA Weather and Traffic app.